All right, everybody, I'm just going to do a quick sound check. If you can hear me, just type loud and clear into the chat box, please. All right, awesome, awesome. All right, everybody, so I'm going to jump right into this. As usual, if you have questions at any point during the broadcast, just type them into the chat box and I will go through them one by one. Typically, these meetings last about an hour, but I will definitely go longer if people need me for longer. So let me just pop out the chat box just so I can see it a little bit better. All right, cool. All right, so I'm just going to jump right into the questions that were asked right off the bat. Let me just see here. All right, the first question that came in was, how would you find or get a meeting for the neighborhood regarding local planning and zoning? So the way that basically any sort of development works is that you first want to actually go to the best zoning attorney within your neighborhood. So I'm assuming on this question that you're looking to build something and maybe even possibly build something bigger than what it's currently zoned for. So anytime that you're doing a development project, there's what we call what is buildable by right, and then what's buildable by variance. And so if you own a parcel of land or if you own a piece of property and it is totally within the zoning guidelines that you can do something additional to it. Now, for example, if you have a two-family property and you want to turn it into a three-family, and that particular area is zoned for three families, and there's rules and regulations about how to get it and turn it into a three-family, then all you would have to do is follow the procedures for that town, and it would be able to be done by right. Okay, so your local area zoning attorney will be able to tell you that. In every town, there tends to be 1 to 3 really dominant zoning attorneys that know the rules and regulations backwards and forwards for that particular town. Zoning rules and laws can vary a lot from town to town. So you definitely want to go to the top 1, 2, or 3 people in any particular town, because they're probably within a 20-minute conversation going to be able to tell you whether it's buildable by right and what you need to do in order to either build something or add an addition or whatever you're looking to do, or if it's possible to get a variance to do it. And so a variance is basically the process of going in front of the local zoning board to ask them to make an exception to the rule. Okay, so for example, again, going back to that two-family, if you want to turn that two-family into a three-family, but the entire area is only zoned for a two-family, the only way that you would even possibly be able to do this is to try to get a variance to kind of go around or get an exception to those rules. Now again, you're going to want to rely on the particular zoning attorney in that town, because variances are the type of thing where if it hasn't been done before and there's no precedence for it, your local zoning attorney is probably going to tell you not to waste your time, because it's going to be a very, very low probability that it will be accepted. And these types of things are the local zoning board, they literally vote. So it's a group of people in that particular town that are actually voting on whether or not they're going to grant that variance. So again, you want to start first with your local zoning attorney. Tell them what you're looking to do, and they will probably either be able to tell you what needs to be done or if it's a waste of time. All right, second question. What's the best time to talk to a new general contractor? I hear they are very busy in the morning, but also that they are exhausted in the afternoon. I don't think that matters at all. I don't think the timing of when you talk to them matters. I mean, everyone's going to be a little bit different. So I would just try to find a day and time that is convenient for them and try to fit it around your schedule. I wouldn't really worry too much about, their schedule. They'll definitely let you know, what works for them, and, go around that. All right, Cindy, what do you do with a lead that answers the phone and says, "Oh my God, you keep calling and texting, can't you get a hint?" Do you trash it or follow up after they cooled off a bit? Well, that's a kind of interesting one, because I would say that the probability of this one after that type of response is pretty low, but they also didn't directly tell you 100% that they're not selling. So what I would probably have followed up with that as, I would probably have asked them the follow-up question of, you know, are you definitely not selling? Or are you not selling now, or are you selling at some point in the future? Just let me know so that I can kind of plan. And then try to get a response from them. Because from the way that they responded, it could mean that they're not selling, or it could mean don't bother me right now, I'm selling later. So I would have followed that up with trying to get a time frame, or just saying something like, can you just let me know the time frame that you are considering selling so that I don't keep following up with you? And then at that point, they either would have given you a time frame, or they would have said, I'm not selling. I don't really trash anything unless the phone number doesn't work or it wasn't an actual lead. So sometimes you'll get a real estate agent or a wholesaler or another investor who will fill out a form, and those are the ones that I would trash. If you feel like it's dead for now, I would put it on a quarterly or twice a year follow-up action plan. And yeah, we've been surprised a lot. Granted, like, these aren't the ones that you want to focus on, so this is definitely not a hot lead whatsoever, but I wouldn't completely discount it. And this would be one, if you're putting into a quarterly follow-up plan, that you might want to hit on the dialer, or you might want to group text message. So something I haven't shown anyone really how to do is to load all your contacts into a text message manager and send out one blast email. So this would be one where, like, I would send out another text message probably to a bunch of people all at the same time, maybe a quarter from now, and say, hi, we got your contact information a while back. I don't know if you're still considering selling. Let me know. And that's probably what I would do with that one, in addition to a quarterly email. Have you ever thought about buying lists from wheelchair companies, oxygen companies, stair lift companies, etc.? So I don't think it would be realistic to get these lists, because essentially these companies would be selling their company list. They'd be selling their client list. And I think for them, they would probably not want to do that. The other issue with these particular type of lists, like you're essentially saying, like, getting to them, while they're getting towards the end, of their life, or getting towards the end of maybe, like a wheelchair, maybe they have to move out of a 2-story property and move into a ranch or something like that. There's 2 issues with this. The first is that just because somebody would come off of a list like this doesn't necessarily mean that's a property that you would want to buy, and it doesn't mean that they have a mortgage that's low enough um, for you to be able to buy it. So somebody, might be moving out of a house from a wheelchair company list, from a two-family to a single-family, but their mortgage balance might be too high. In addition to the fact that you wouldn't be able to probably get these lists, I mean, I would be really, really surprised if you would even be able to get these lists. But what I would do and what we do is we get probate lists and we get inheritance lists, and those ones are more motivated today, because if you got a list from a wheelchair company, I mean, you could still have somebody that's in that property for 5, 10, 15 more years. So even if you could get these lists, I don't think they would be the right list. I would definitely prefer to hit probates and inheritances, but I don't think you're going to be able to get these lists anyways. All right, so Frank asked about talking about phone prospecting, scripts, powerful closes to get appointments. He's working on getting his prospecting and appointments setting skills and would love to increase his ability to call on sellers and set appointments. All right, so this is a good one because the reality of the situation is scripts and powerful closes are 100% not necessary. When you're cold calling, it's totally a volume game, and I'm actually pretty anti-scripting for pretty much anything across the board. I think you need to be very conversational, and the bigger thing when you're cold calling is to be able to handle objections. And what I mean by objections is, what do you do when somebody says, "I'm not thinking about selling now, call me back later"? So it's more important to have the right answer for an objection than to have a good script. So in terms of the script itself, I mean, the people that we have on our team that are calling, they're just introducing themselves. "Hi, this is Tom from Ocean City Development. We're looking to buy properties in your area. Will you consider selling now or at any point in the next 3, 6, or 12 months? And then from there, so that's kind of the script, but it's not really a thorough script. From there, it's all about your reaction to what they say to you. And you're going to, whether or not you want to or not, you're going to end up developing your answers to all of those objections as you go along. And so I think it's a lot more important to hit the volume than to really get a good script. So the more people that you talk to, the more appointments you're going to get. And at the end of the day, if someone is motivated to sell their house and you happen to call them on that particular day, they're going to take the appointment. So you want to hit the volume if at all possible. Powerful closes and things like that where you're trying to talk somebody into letting you into their house when they're not really motivated to sell. You may be able to get a couple more appointments, but they're going to be people who aren't quite as motivated. And so on the investing side, those really aren't the people that we're necessarily looking for. Mike, what are the best sources to look up cell phone numbers when you have a name and address? So the best source that I would recommend is Cole Realty Resource. And so Mike actually is a real estate agent. They just joined my Boston office. So Mike, we have Cole. We have the Cole directory, and you can literally just log into it, and you can upload the addresses that you want to get cell phone numbers for, and it will spit them back out to you. So you can talk to me offline about the login and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty easy to do. I can definitely help you on that one. All right, I recently talked to a seller who wants to sell, but I'm not sure I want to buy it. It's a mobile home on 12 acres. It's a 2+ hour drive for me, and I think they owe more than I would pay. What's the best way to work a property like that? I'd say this is a long shot, just in general. First of all, mobile homes are tough. There's not high demand for them. The sales price is low. I personally wouldn't buy one because the margins aren't going to be there either. Just as an example, let's just say that the mobile home is worth $90,000 after repair value. Even if you bought that property for $25,000, you still would have a hard time making money on it. So in general, I personally would stay away from them. The mobile home market is not as liquid as the residential single family and multifamily market. So all across the country, the residential single family and multifamily market, if it's priced right, you put it on the market, and within 2 weeks, you're under contract for either above or near asking. And so I would definitely, as a kind of principle, kind of stay away from them unless you're dealing in that market directly. So there are people that all they do is mobile homes. But if you're doing 95% single family residential and then you try to do a one-off mobile home, I feel like that has the potential for disaster. And then it's 2 hours away from you. And then they owe more than what you can pay, which means it's going to be a short sale. So short sales in general take 6 to 9 months from start to finish, and you put in a lot of work. There's a lot of paperwork, a long process to do a short sale, and then only 20 to 25% of the time do they end up actually accepting an investor offer. So like this one, I hate to call any lead dead, but I would probably just stay away from this one altogether. I think you're going to be spinning your wheels to not make any money, and there are so many other potential good deals out there that I think it's just not worth your time, energy, and effort. All right, another one came in. What is the name again to find the cell phone numbers? So it is Cole Realty Resource, and I think I want to say it's $2,000 or $3,000 for the year. Let me see if I can find the pricing on it. I forget what it is. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's like $2,000 or $2,500 for the cell phones. So definitely worth it to get the cell phones for sure. All right, Amy, my time freed up more than usual, so I have a little bit more time to put towards real estate investing. Where would you put that time? She's been kind of reading about a bunch of different things. In the beginning, if you have additional time, the only thing that you really should be even thinking about is prospecting, for sure. And so when it comes to prospecting, there's only 3 things that work well: cold calling, internet marketing, and mailing. And so I know Amy's particular question is basically she has time. So she doesn't want to spend more money on mailers. She doesn't want to spend more money on internet marketing. So the rest of the stuff I would not worry about. Like, okay, direct mailers, if you're not going to spend money on it, there's nothing to learn about. Website options and squeeze pages, we already have that set up for you, and that's where the leads are going and filling out forms. Lead pipes, so RealFlow's lead pipes is simply a list. So RealFlow has different lead sources like pre-foreclosures, and they have a few different ones, but again, if you're not going to actively spend money to generate leads on there, there's only 2 things you can do. Number 1 is door knocking, which most people just won't do. If you are willing to door knock, it is really effective, but it does take guts, and it's not super fun. The easier thing to do, that is more trackable and that you'll get more guaranteed results, is to do the cold calling. And so what we would do for her, if she wanted to, was we would define what properties we're looking to target. We would run a list. We would get the cell phone records. We would load them into the 3-line Mojo dialer, and then she would call on them. And that is what I would recommend doing if you have additional time. The rest of the stuff with Amy Argy working with us is already built in, so there's not much else to do. So if you have additional time, I would recommend hitting the phones, but that would be probably the only thing, unless you really wanted to get aggressive and door knock, which again, you know, some people are willing to do, but most aren't. Whoops. Okay, and this question about generating leads on her own is kind of the same follow-up to what we just discussed. Could we go over how to best utilize some of the follow-up boss action plans and buttons? FUB has been great for ensuring I keep following up the leads, but I'm not best utilizing it. So I'm going to go over the action plans really quickly because the action plans are really critical. They're easy, but they're critical that you know what to do. So whoops. All right, so in follow-up boss, we've got a bunch of action plans, but the ones that you really want to pay attention to that are going to be helpful for you are the ones that are related to a time frame. Okay, and so the 1 month delay, 2 month delay, 3 month delay, 4 month delay, 5 month delay, 6 month delay, all the way up to the 18 month delay. And then we have a 1 week delay, 2 week delay, 3 week delay, 4 week delay. Those are the only ones that you really want to worry about, and they're all about timing. Okay, so if you talk to somebody and they say, I'm not selling for 3 more months, then you want to probably put them on a 2 month delay so that you get to them a month before they're going to meet with somebody else. So essentially when a lead comes in, after you talk to them, if you determine that they're not willing and able to sell right now and they give you another time frame, you just want to click on one of these time action plans. The other two are the quarterly and the twice a year action plan. So those are both self-explanatory. The quarterly action plan is when somebody says, I'm not selling for a year or a year and a half, and you just want to kind of check in with them. And the twice a year action plan I would use for somebody like the one that Cindy had earlier that pretty much you know is a dead lead. It's not worth spending a lot of time, effort, and energy, but you still do want to keep in touch with them at some level. Yeah, so she asked about if an out-of-state owner who can't show the property until July when he's back, so could I put him on some type of drip campaign? So today's May 25th. I would probably set this on a 3 or 4 week delay action plan just to follow up with him and see if you can get in at that period of time. All right, this is a question I got from actually multiple different people about Zillow instant offers. So for those of you who aren't aware what this is, Zillow is launching a beta test in a couple of different markets, 2 test markets, where they're going to allow sellers who are looking up their property and getting his estimate, so putting in their property address and getting the value of their house, to also click a button to get an offer. And so when they click the button to get an offer, I believe it's going to go out to multiple investors. Let me just see if it says here how many people. I don't know how many it's going to go out to, but it's going to go out to multiple investors, and they're essentially going to be able to bid against each other for the property. So Zillow has done a lot of things that have already changed the real estate industry, and this could be another one of them. The bottom line for us is that if they are sending this lead out to one or maybe two or maybe three investors, it could be a really good lead source. But it sounds like they're going to be sending it out to 10 or 15 or 20 different investors. And at that point, it's going to be tough to get a good deal on it, because at that point, really, there's going to be too much competition on the property. So they're only launching this in two markets. They're going to see how it goes. They're already getting a lot of backlash from real estate agents, and they could face some regulatory burdens because some agents are making the case that Zillow is now operating as a brokerage. So, we're definitely going to keep an eye on it. I don't think at the end of the day it's going to really have any impact on us whatsoever. But it is one of those things where you don't know how prevalent it's going to be. You don't know if the two test markets are going to succeed. If they don't succeed, then this might not even be rolled out at all. If it does get rolled out, we'll have to see how many investors they release the information to and kind of take it from there. All right, Mike asked about, so I misunderstood his question at first, but the question that he asked was essentially he's in a high-priced market for both real estate and labor. And so he's heard that in his area they need to add 15 to 30% on top of the repair estimates for more accurate estimates. And so what he's referring to is my budgeting tool here. So this is the budgeting tool that we use internally in the Boston market to get a rough estimate of what the repairs will be. So we focus on the top 10 or 15 items that make up the majority of the rehab, and we break them up into different property sizes, so small, medium, and large. And then we go through it. Does it need plumbing? Yes. Does it need exterior siding? Yes. Does it need landscaping? Yes. And then it calculates out the budget for you. So his question is, would these numbers be accurate in his market? And I think the answer to that is that I can't give an honest answer because I haven't tried to get labor in your market. I do know Boston is definitely not a cheap labor market at all. And in fact, I've actually had people say to me the opposite, essentially, that my numbers are too high here. I know there are definitely areas across the U.S. where these numbers are going to be a little bit high. So I think what you need to do is you need to actually get a real bid, compare it to these numbers, and then kind of make an adjustment from there. So if you know that in general your market is 10% higher than the Boston market, yes, you would add a 10%. And if your market's 10% lower, then you would just mark it as lower. So all right, Hugo, what do you say to a seller who has never sold a property for cash, especially when they ask about payment? When and how do I get paid? What are the mechanics once you have the contract signed? So really a cash deal, there's no real difference between a cash deal and a finance deal in terms of payment. So the seller is going to get paid at the closing. So for example, if you put a property under contract today and the closing is scheduled for June 30th, 2017, then they're going to get paid on June 30th, 2017. So some people get a little bit confused by the word cash. Obviously, they're not getting real cash. Cash just is representing that there's no financing contingency and that you're not getting a loan for the property. So you don't have to qualify for the loan. The mechanics, once you get the contract signed, if you're going to buy it and renovate it yourself, then you would line up either your money or someone else's money to close on it when you close. And if you're going to wholesale the property, then you are going to shop that property to other local area investors, and you are going to then sell them the contract. And so you're going to assign the contract to them, mark it up for an agreed upon price, and then they are actually going to close on the terms that you closed on. So if you got a property under contract that's set to close on June 30th for $150,000, the investor that's going to take your place in the contract is going to close on the property on June 30th, 2017 for $150,000, and then they're going to pay you the assignment fee. All right, so the assignment is one way to do it. A double close deal is the other way to do it. So double closing is a simultaneous close where you're using the cash from the other investor buying the property to close the deal with you. And so the way that it works, it's called a back-to-back closing. And so you would go to your local area registry of deeds or wherever the property is going to actually close. You would both sign on the same day, and whatever the net difference is between what the investor is paying minus closing costs is what you're going to end up walking away with. Can you explain a little bit about what needs to happen if there's a reverse mortgage? So there's a lot of different types of reverse mortgages, and they have a lot of different stipulations in their contract. So in a lot of cases, it's a case-by-case situation. So you need to look at what the deal is with the reverse mortgage. But I believe in most cases, you can still buy out the reverse mortgage. So you would need to see what the payoff is for that, if the reverse mortgage company allows you to have a payoff, and then from there, you could buy the property. In most cases, when people reference this, they're talking about the fact that the reverse mortgage payoff is greater than what the property is worth, in which case you would go through the short sale process, and the process itself for a reverse mortgage is a pretty streamlined process at this case, at this day and age. So you would just go through the steps of whatever your local area short sale negotiator would recommend doing. All right, a few questions about wholesales. Explaining the options and how long each takes. What happens after they sign the P&S if it's a wholesale? How do I avoid closing costs and inspections on the wholesale? And how does the buyer pay them? So we talked about this a little bit, but I'll cover it again. You're going to sign a purchase and sale with your name and/or assigns, and then you are going to then shop the deal to other investors, and you're going to sign an assignment agreement with that investor. And if you assign the contract, then there would be no closing costs and inspections on a wholesale. So if you have the property under contract for $150,000, and then you find an investor who's willing to buy the assigned contract from you at $175,000, you should net $25,000 on that deal, because there will be no closing costs or anything like that. So how do you figure out what closing costs are? To get a 100% accurate number of what closing costs are, you would need to actually run it through a calculator, because literally day by day, closing costs can actually change, because part of a closing cost will end up being like how much taxes are due during that day, at that day. What the rate of the tax fee is, the stamp tax. We have that in Massachusetts. You may not have it nationwide, but a shortcut for this would be to assume $5,000. But if you're assigning a contract, you don't need to even think about closing costs. And if you are double closing on a deal, you will have to incur closing costs, but you don't really want to double close on a deal unless you have a really big margin, $25,000 or more, I would say. If you have a deal where you're only going to make 10 or 15 on it, you definitely want to try to assign that deal. All right, how much percent should I make when wholesaling a deal? There is no such thing as what you should make because it's really dependent upon how good of a deal you get. So when you say how much should you make, what's average is somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000 on a wholesale. But if you put a property under contract and it's not a good deal, you will make zero because nobody will buy that contract from you. And vice versa, if you get a really, really good contract, you can make as much on it as the deal is good. So I've made $300,000 on a wholesale deal before. That is not common whatsoever, but just kind of proves the point that, you know, it's not like I looked at that $300,000 deal and said, oh, I should make $10,000, so I'll wholesale it for $10,000. So it's really all about how good of a deal you get, and kind of the way that you want to look at it is most investors are going to buy on the formula. They're going to take 70% of the after repair value minus repairs. So if there is a property with the ARV times 70% gets you down to 210, and say there's $60,000 in repairs. Most investors are going to want to pay somewhere around $150,000 on a deal like that. If you get the property under contract for $150,000, you should be able to make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, because in this market, people are trying for 70%, but they're having a difficult time getting it. So you still should be able to make a wholesale profit on that. But let's say instead of getting it for $150,000, you get it for $120,000. Well, you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to make 30 on that, but you might make 40 or 45. So it really just depends on how good of a deal you get on the property. The better deal you get, the more you're going to make, and that's pretty much the name of the game. Does every wholesale deal need transactional funding? Nope. So if you assign the contract, you don't need any funding at all. It's only when you double close on a deal that you would even consider using transactional funding. All right, where's the best place to put all my buyer and realtor leads? So I would say use Follow Up Boss for everything. Any leads that you have, any person that you need to make a phone call for, because if you use, I don't care if you put, it doesn't matter to me whether or not you use a different system for different things. But I think at the end of the day, if you have too many systems that you're using, you're only going to log into one probably, and you definitely need to log into Follow Up Boss every day. So I would put everything else in Follow Up Boss as well. Exporting contacts from Follow Up Boss, unfortunately, we need to do that on the administrative side. It does not allow individual investors that have just a single license to export. So all you would need to do is shoot me an email, and I'm happy to do that. I'm trying to get them to allow export from individual people, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I don't think it will happen. And then, yeah, if you want to mass email them, MailChimp is definitely the best, because MailChimp allows you to have up to 2,000 subscribers for free, and that's what I would do on MailChimp. Now, I would only use MailChimp, though, if you're going to blast everybody. So MailChimp would be used like if you're going to shop a deal that you have, you would put all of your cash buyers into MailChimp and blast that out. If you're talking about just keeping in touch with leads, then I would set up an action plan within Follow Up Boss. Jorge, yes. FUB stands for Follow Up Boss. Yes. All right, information about the July event. Not going to go into too much detail on this. It's right here. If anyone does want to see it, it is on this page. Everything's all set. Everything's lined up. The people who have paid are in. I think we might have hit full capacity. We might have a seat or two left, but definitely not much more room for the event. All right, I think we only have a couple more left. So if you guys do have more questions, definitely type them into the chat box, and I'm going to go through these remaining ones. All right, so this is an interesting one. Do you have any training on how to complete a purchase and sale agreement on a seller finance deal? Seller owns home free and clear and is willing to take out a mortgage to fund repairs and her move to Florida. Once we repair the house, we would pay off the mortgage. She takes out and negotiates some of her profits here for funding repairs. Just not sure how to structure it. So this particular one, these can get kind of tricky. Not really a huge fan of deals that aren't straightforward because there tends to be problems. So if she is moving to Florida and she leaves you, I think I would need more clarification on this, but if she's, by the way, Danny's in Maine, so he's pretty close to where I'm located. So if she's moving to Florida and you are going to manage the project, and the goal is that she will get a higher price from you managing the project rather than getting all complicated with everything. So I think that the key here is that what Danny's kind of looking to do is make a profit by managing the project and make it a win-win, because that seller has a house that needs work and she's willing to seller finance the deal and fund the repairs. So I think this one really boils down to whether or not you basically want to trade your time for managing a project. And because that's really what it sounds like is happening here. And the easier thing to probably do to make sure that you get paid is probably just to manage it like you are a GC and bill her out like you're just a project manager. That would basically guarantee that you're getting paid, and I would ask for upfront payment for some of the work and make sure that as work is going along that you're getting paid more, and then that would allow you to make money on the renovation and allow you to guarantee that you're getting paid. Because on this particular deal, unless you know that it's a slam dunk that she's going to sell and that you're going to be able to get the price that you want to make money, my concern would be that you manage this entire project and then she decides not to sell, or you don't get what you want, and then you basically manage this entire project without getting paid. So I think it would be simpler to do the kind of GC style on this one. All right, Cindy, are most of the people for the July event out of town or local? Everyone's out of town. I actually had a bunch of people try to sign up locally, and I had to tell them that it's only for the out-of-state people, because I do have events locally all the time. So yeah, it's going to be all out-of-state people. The people who will be here locally are going to be my team. So myself, my partners, my sales manager, all the real estate agents, probably have our attorney come, inside sales agents, all those people. So you're going to meet everyone on our team, but those will really be the local people that will be here. And we have people coming from California to Washington State, Oregon, Texas, Ohio. So yeah, it'll be really interesting, and pretty much I think I'll be meeting every single person for the first time. So it'll be pretty cool. All right, so this is a question on calculating an offer. Thought you have said we should always go off the ARV times 70% minus repairs equals offer. Do you recommend for a newer investor to try to make whatever profit possible in the beginning if the deal ends up at least close to what the equation says to offer? So he's basically saying that on the deal he's talking about, he would still make $20,000. A $20,000 margin when flipping a house is nothing. And it's not nothing to make, but a $20,000 profit can easily turn into a $10,000 loss, depending upon what the property ends up selling for, how long the holding period is, whether or not you're held up with inspections, or you list the property and you get a couple of buyers that back out and drag out the contract. So yeah, if you're going into it hoping to make 20, I would run away from that deal. And to go over the 70% of ARV minus repairs on your first deal, I think is a pretty big possible mistake. And I would definitely, if anything, I would be a little bit more conservative on your first deal, or at least make sure that it fits into the 70% of ARV minus repairs. If you think it's still a good deal and it's a little bit above 70%, I would probably recommend wholesaling that one for your first deal until you get really comfortable, or at least offering it as a wholesale to see what the response is from other local area investors. So if you offer that deal out and 15 people are knocking down your door to buy it, well, now you've just got some market feedback that it's really a good deal. So maybe it actually is 70% of ARV, or maybe even a little bit lower, and you may have miscalculated the ARV or the repairs. So keep in mind that this ARV times 70% minus repairs, you want to get as accurate as you can on the ARV, you want to get as accurate as you can on the repairs, but this number is never going to equal your sales price. So you could be an expert in comping out properties and you're never going to sell your property for exactly what ARV is. It's just not going to happen. You can get really close, you can try to guess, but you never know 100% exactly how the market is going to respond to any particular property, which is why this $20,000 is just not enough, because you may think that your ARV is $200,000 and then all of a sudden the ARV is really 180, and so you just did a 3 to 6 month project to make no money. Or even worse, if it was only worth 170, you just did a 3 to 6 month project to make negative 10. All right, when collecting money from private lenders, what system do you use to keep track of each loan payment and term? So what we do, we pay out everybody on the first of the month. And that keeps it really easy because we have a list of all the investors that invest with us and what properties they're currently invested in. And so we're able to keep this just simply as a spreadsheet. And then every single month we pay out on the first of the month so that everyone's getting paid the same day. And I think that's important because if you had people getting paid at all different days during the month, I think that would become confusing. And so when we sell a property, we just cross-reference the Excel spreadsheet with who invested in the deal. And so that next month we know that they're not getting paid. So I don't really think you need an app or a program or anything like that because it's really not that complicated. And what we typically pay is 12%, which equates to 1% per month. So if somebody is investing $100,000 with us, we're paying them $1,000 a month. So really, it's just really simple. I mean, that's an easy calculation that can be done on a spreadsheet. I think, honestly, trying to use apps and programs for things that aren't necessary can make it more complicated and confusing when, in this case, it's a really simple process. All right, so Cindy, we already talked about this. So I changed this already. So when the email, when you get a lead now, it auto responds with your contact information. And so I pulled that part of it out. If you continue to see that, let me know, but that should be fixed as of today. The only time when that won't happen is if somebody goes directly to our website. So we're starting to build out some search engine optimization on the site in general, and we are starting to generate some leads from that. And unfortunately, we can't automatically direct those into your follow-up boss because they're coming in from one national page. So some of those will still have this in here, but there should be at less than half, maybe a quarter or something like that. All right, I think this was the last one for this week. Is 15% discount off market value attractive to an investor? Definitely not. 15% is probably break even, and you definitely won't be able to wholesale it. So if you did wholesale something with a 15% discount, you'd basically be selling that. You'd be wholesaling that person a guaranteed loss. So you definitely want to hit the 30% for sure. And again, if you really want to make money as a wholesaler, you want even more discounted than that. You know, you want to get 65 cents or 60 cents or whatever you can get, but definitely not 15 for sure. That's a recipe for you spinning your wheels, because if you do sell to an investor, if you do have an investor that it understands what they're doing, they're just going to deny that deal. And so you're going to be, and you're also going, one thing you don't want to do as a wholesaler is put bad deals in front of good investors, because that's really the easiest way to lose their attention. So if you keep blasting deals to them every month or every 2 months and they look at them and they're all overpriced, well, they're probably going to unsubscribe from your emails, and they're going to think that you don't know what you're doing, and they're not going to want to work with you. So that's something that I would just be cautious of. Like, when you are presenting a deal, you have to look at it from the other person's perspective to understand whether or not they can make money on it. And if they can't make money on it and you're trying to force a deal to somebody, they're not going to buy it, and then you're only going to make yourself look less credible. So anything else? I covered all the questions that came in. I will stick around as long as everybody needs me. Type the questions into the question box, the chat box, if you do need anything else. If not, I will wrap up in about a minute. Again, for those of you who have not registered for the Fix and Flip event that's taking place on July 19th, 20th. What is it? Let me just check here before I start saying the dates. Yeah, so July 19th is when everyone is going to be flying in. We're going to have a dinner with everybody that night. And then the 20th and the 21st are when we are going to be hosting all the training at our office. So if you're not registered for that, definitely register sooner rather than later. We may only have a slot or two left. I think we may. So if you do want to get on that, definitely register now. And it doesn't look like anybody else has questions, so I am going to wrap it up. Of course, if you guys need me at all after the call, shoot me an email, and I will get back to you with anything that is urgent. So, all right, everybody, I appreciate you being on today, and I will see you next Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Thank you.